I guess in a way you could say it's been, non-duality, or what the hell is non-duality anyway? But there was a sense always, ever since I was a little kid, about something. And in a way, I think it was always came up at times when people would ask me, like people would say in school or somewhere, like, you define who you are. And I would never, like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to say that. Like, how do people even know that? Just when you look, I think it maybe came more in high school days. I was born in Hungary, and then I was 16 years old when I came to the United States. And it would, this sense would all come up at times when, people would say like, oh, look at that gorgeous view, or look at that beautiful sunset. And I would be like, yeah, but there was this sense of, it's really even hard to put it into words. There's this sense of like, just something, it's like not enough, it's not it, there's something else. It's just, those are just expression of it, but it's just this inner, and much later on, when I was 21, there was a sudden dropping away, which at that time it wasn't seen. There was no space, there was no time, and what was seen was unconditional love. It was overwhelming, and it was already the case. It was huge. It lasted maybe 10 seconds or something like that, but it was, it was bawling out of pure joy, because it was such a relief. And what it said at the time, and it didn't even say that, but it was like, oh yeah, of course, nothing dies. And like I said, unconditional love was already the case, but it wasn't anything that I have arrived at, or it wasn't a conclusion. It was just and then like I said, I was 21, I went to school, and I sort of gotten back on with my life, but it's sort of somehow a little bit pulled out the rug a little bit. There were holes in the tapestry, if you would say, of what I would call my life. And then later on, I started doing yoga, and my personality is it's either black or white. It's 0 or 200 miles an hour. Like, there's no shades of gray in between. So I got really into it. I got so into it that I didn't even like going to the yoga studio anymore. I had to do it in my kitchen and do it for 3 hours every day, just drenched. And then there are all sorts of these things started happening in the body that, meaningless, but at that time there was these energetics happening that were like pretty crazy for me. And then I got into Eckhart Tolle for about 6 months. And on the internet, I searched, and I was on a forum, and somebody had mentioned, oh yeah, I like what Eckhart Tolle says, but there's this guy, Tony Parsons, he says it much simpler. And then I watched his interview with the Conscious TV interview. I'm sure you've seen it. And then just loved it. And there was one very specific line that I remember from it is, the dilemma is not that the individual cannot find what it's looking for. The dilemma is the individual. And then this was in I think towards the end of the year, November, December, something like that. And by March, I was at a retreat, residential, with Tony in Wales. And
how was that experience? How was the residential with Tony?
Yeah, I think I got massively sick before that. I never had an ear infection. I had one ear infection when I was like 4 years old, and I had terrible ear infection, sore throat, fevers, like really bad, a couple of weeks before. And And then I went, and I said, well, it'll be nice. I'll go to Wales. And there's one more thing that I guess I want to say, that when I called the office, and I spoke with Claire. I didn't know it was Claire at that time, and I just remember talking to her, and it was so accepting and embraced. This energy just hit me, even in that few seconds when we chatted. It was unbelievable, And I remember it now, and I can amplify it a little bit more. But at that time, when you're going along in your life, you're just like wait, wow, what was that? But then you go back onto whatever it is that you're doing. So then I got on a plane. I went to London. I didn't even know how I was going to get to Wales, but I just found my way there. And I remember I walked in the door. It was huge doors, and the handles are almost like chest high or something. So I opened the door. I remember there was Tony, and it was just like immediately I saw him, and it was like like something went like that here, and I thought like, oh, maybe it's just because I've seen him on like on YouTube or whatever, and I'm like starstruck a little bit. And we chatted with the people, and then went into the first meeting. The residential was Wednesday through Sunday, and went into the first meeting after dinner. And I remember Tony talking, and he was standing up, and he had his hands in his pocket, and he was fiddling with the change. After like 10 minutes, I was like, I'm not listening to anything this man's saying, nor do I need to. It just hit me like a Mack truck. And when he was finished talking, I remember asking him, I was like, is this dangerous? And he says, yeah, absolutely, it's terrifying. And I just started laughing. And I remember the laughter came from like below my belly button or something, like so deep. And as I was laughing, I remember like the last time I laughed like this was when I was a baby. And yeah, and I distinctly remember sitting in the room and feeling like falling into a bottomless well, falling down into a bottomless well, and trying to hold on to the sides. And I couldn't do anything about either of those things. There was some energy, there was something in the room at that time that I was just holding on. It was like my mind was trying to constantly grasp what that was. I mean, it was extremely powerful. And I remember the analogy came into my mind, like I was like a dog trying to grasp on to the stream from a garden hose. I knew it was impossible, but I couldn't stop the grasping of it either. And yeah, the 5 days went on, with sort of energy going more or less. Met a lot of people. Laughed really, really good. And at that time, Tony was doing one-on-ones. You could sign up. And I remember went into the one-on-one with him, and he says, yeah, he says, Joey, he says, I remember your name. He says, it's strange because I don't remember anyone's name. And I just like started crying, just bawling and crying. I don't know why. So then we had a nice chat. And then when the residential was over, I was going to spend some time. And and Andreas Muller was my roommate. He was his last residential, and it was my first residential. But we didn't really, we just said hello at that time. We didn't really become friendly until later on. And the residential was over. I was gonna go to the Brecon Beacons to hike for 3 or 4 days. I was like, it's a great opportunity. and I took a cab down to Brecon, and I was walking along this canal, and I remember the thought, the future came into my mind somewhere, and I started howling, laughing, because I realized there is no future. There's nowhere to go. And it was a really strange experience, because there was something in here inside my stomach that was contracting, and it was like, it was like this forward moving energy. The momentum didn't have anywhere to go. So I literally wanted to jump out of the body from what is into what's next, because that's its function. And literally it was like, like trying to go. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the hell is that, you know? And then, you know, it was like everything was just like crazy, totally two-dimensional. And just walking along the canal lasted about 45 minutes. And I remember something in my head, and afterwards just went like this, ooh. And then here in my chest, like maybe 5 minutes later, ooh. And I guess the contracted energy was back, if you could say that. And it was just tired. I could barely walk back to my B&B. And went to sleep, woke up in the middle of the night. Double bed was complete, everything was soaked in sweat, just drenched in sweat. And my heart was going absolutely nuts. Like it wouldn't beat for like 10 seconds, and it would just beat like a machine gun, then nothing, then again. And I woke up the next morning just utterly terrified, sheer terror. And, you know, I understood the concepts of non-duality, and I was like, well, as much as, you know, I could at that point, I think. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go outside and let go. I'm going to die. and, you know, I couldn't do that. So I had met a guy there, and, you know, and at the residential, and he offered me, you know, if you're ever in London, you want to stay. So I ended up going right back to London and staying a couple of days, and then flying back to the States. Yeah, so that was my long-winded answer for the question of my first experience with Tony. The only thing that I have to say add to it is that this body is very much energetic. It's just like it's very much, the whole thing is just lived, and it's really powerful, you know.
Thank you, Joe. That was epic, yeah. Man.
Yeah.
And then after that, what did you do? Did you know, how did you find Jim, Andreas, Kenneth? If you can tell your story.
You know, like I said, I have a personality of a pit bull, pretty much. If I grasp onto something, you know, I'm just not letting go. And I had went to, there was a March of 2011, if I remember correctly, and I haven't missed the residential with Tony since then. I've gone, and then weekends sometimes. So I flew over from New Jersey, from New York, you know, 4 or 5 times a year. You know, I didn't take no vacation. Wasn't at that point. I knew that that's what I was interested in. I didn't care about vacation. I didn't really give a shit about anything else, honestly. I knew that that's what I've been looking for the whole time, in a way, and that was the only thing that I cared about, to a large extent. And so I was very, very, very much seeking, really crazily, at the first time, you know, after the first residential, and downloaded at that time. You know, there wasn't anything really on YouTube. It was more, you could download the MP3s from Tony's page and onto my I don't know, iPod or something like that. You know, it was before I had a smartphone. And
how long ago was that? How long ago was that, Joey?
It was still in 2011. This is right after the residential, the first residential. You know, it was like being hit by a bus. You know, and I remember downloading everything, and I was like, it's gonna be in the next sentence. You know, I'm gonna get it now. It's gonna be in it. You know, like I was very intently listening, And then at that one, I remember Tony was talking to some guy in one of those MP3s, and he said, don't look for it to be the same as the first, as that time around, as the first time around, because the contrast was huge at that point. It's never going to be like that. It's never. And I was just like, I remember, and at that time actually was so much stuff going on in the body, like energetically. I was going to the doctors trying to find out what the hell is going on with me, like all sorts of weird things, and they checked out everything and everything was normal. And just hearing him say that, don't look for it to be that way, I was like, oh God, thank God. Oh dear Lord, it was just such a relief to hear that, even in an audio or an MP3 or something, you hear something from Tony or somebody, and it just can be, it can knock you sideways. So yeah, that's that. And then that was maybe in the summertime, I guess, of 2011. And then I went to see him in Germany in August, and there was, another big thing afterwards. And then I went to see him in Ireland, and then I just kept going for, up until the pandemic. Actually, on the day of the when that weekend, when they shut everything down and they were going to close the borders, I was going to be in Amsterdam. And I was like, should I go? Should I not go? And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And Claire texted me from the airport and said, she's like, listen, we went to the airport and we're on our way home because it was just too weird and we're going home, thank God. So I haven't seen them since, but, they both Tony and Claire, I love them dearly, and they became very much a part of my life. We became close friends as well. And Jim, I had met the second time I went to see Tony. He was on that residential in Kisleg. Yeah, I just remember we had such a great time playing poker all night, and we had just laughed so much. Yeah. And that time, Jim, he was still a seeker. And Andreas, I had heard about. I don't even know. I didn't even hear about Andreas. He just popped up on YouTube. And he's, I started listening to it, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds spot on. And I was like, wait, that's the guy that I was roommates with. So then, much later on, a couple of years later on, I had met Andreas at a weekend with Tony in Munich. I went home to Hungary, and I had flown out to Munich to see Tony, and I met Andreas. And I had said to him, like, why don't you just come to New York and give a talk? And he was like, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So then I started organizing. I started a website called Nonduality NY. And I started organizing talks, invited Kenneth Madden first, and then Andreas came. Oh, no, I think then Jim came, and then Andreas, and just every year. Andreas usually spends Thanksgiving with us. He spends it at my house for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years now. I can't even remember. So in 2019, he was here 3 times. Yeah, so became very close friends with him, good friends with Jim and Kenneth. So that's the story. I mean, a lot of other stuff in terms of seeking and all this crazy energetic things that happened before, in between, but yeah, that's it.
That's pretty awesome, man. Pretty awesome story. And then you know Tim Cliss as well now, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tim I had met in Buckland Hall. And we had a wonderful night together. It was both Tim Paul Morgan Summers and me, we had a night at Buckland Hall where we were just like howling, laughing, up, you know, like up until like 2, 3, 4. I have no idea how long in the morning. And, you know, that's how I know Tim. We just, you know, we both have a very irreverent sense of humor, I think. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's how I know Tim. And then I watched an interview with Tim from Frankie, because Frankie I had met in Ireland. Well, I don't know, a funny story. When I met Frankie, we were in Wicklow in Ireland, and I remember he we connected, and then I remember he telling me one morning, he was like, "Man, I was on my way home. I packed up and left." And I was on my way out of here, and then I was in the car driving, and then I turned back around and came back and went back in. Like, what the fuck am I doing? You know? And then after the whole residential was over, I remember him sending me an email, and you know, it was when he sent the email to me, it was like a glimpse or something, and I literally printed it out and I carried it around with me for a really long time in my pocket, because it was just like those words were so precious for me at that time, you know. It was really sweet. I remember him saying like tick tapping on the keyboard or something like that, and it just, yeah, it was great. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I wish I was doing Nothing Media and would have interviewed Jim and Andreas before the apparent shift, kind of like this.
Yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying?
You're assuming that there's going to be an apparent shift, and I'm sort of not. I am not.
Well, you know what? When I was heavy into seeking, I listened to Jim and Tony. I told Tony this and Jim that I would be listening to YouTube videos after. Like it would be kind of like an 8-hour thing for me. Like I'll start my day, it was like a job. And then in between, I would read books and I would highlight things, you know, and and I would rewind things. I'm like, just in case I missed a word that Jim said. There was a big desperation here as well.
Yeah.
And then when I think after the apparent, nothing happened, but the apparent thing that happened, I watched the videos and I think I laughed for 2 days. I was just kind of like, I was just in hysterics. I'm like, this is the funniest thing, because everything that Jim and Tony are saying is just so perfectly clear. And it just cracked me up. And in meetings right now, it still cracks me up. So sometimes I have to kind of like hide myself in the video because it's just so clear. It's just something that cannot be unseen. I don't know.
Well, this strange thing is from this point of view, you know, of apparently being somebody, is that, and that was one of the first things that Tony had said in the meeting that struck me, that he says it's not an idea or a thought or a belief. It's a felt, embodied sense of energy. And I remember in that first meeting, you know, I can even still hear the sounds of him brushing his hands against his pants. You know, that it's an energetic, embodied sense, and that struck with me so deep. I knew that was it, because it's somehow something he knew that it's not something that I could ever understand, even though I tried to understand and figure out and all those things.
Yeah, it can never be understood. It's just impossible.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what you know, drew me to it. And like I said, you know, when I was addicted to being in the meetings in the very same way as Jim had said that, you know, before it had all collapsed, you know, it's the only place that, you know, you could get home or something. I remember Jim and Rita used to tell me that I'd make him cry, because sometimes I would say something in the meetings. And I remember one time I said, I feel like I'm a prisoner sentenced to life, and I'm not allowed, and I'm locked away in solitary. And a couple of times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, I can come up onto the roof and see the sunlight a little bit, you know? It's just when I come to the meetings, it's just that's when you feel at home in that sense. So, yeah.
Beautiful stories, man. This could be a really nice book. What you're telling me right now, it's beautiful.
Well, I'm laying it all out on YouTube. So what the hell is it? Who's gonna buy the damn book now? I should have thought about that before.
Damn it.
Yeah, and then you know, I just kept going, made a lot of friends, you know, through this. I remember one of my friends, you know, he's one of my best friends. His name is Andy, and he lives in New Mexico, Santa Fe. He's originally from England, and we used to go parallel to each other and never talked for, you know, a couple of years. And I had gone to see Tony. My girlfriend was with me and my mom, because I ended up taking my mom one time. Well, more than once. And we were in a line at Newark Airport, and he was switching flights in Newark, but I think he went from Newark to JFK or something like that. He caught a cab. But we were in line, and there was about 20 or 30 people in line to catch a cab. And he was behind me, I remember, and I was like, "Hey guys." And I turned around, and I already missed it so much, that feeling that I mean, it's a huge love fest being there at the residentials. And I turned around and I saw him, and I remember I just hugged him, and I just didn't let it go. And there was, in that hug was that whole residential and all of everything. And then since then we're just like two peas in a pod, you know. We talk all the time. We really love each other. It's great. We had this tremendous bond. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I have a friend that have never heard of Nonduality before. Never really spiritual. So one day he kind of like came over. I was editing some videos and stuff like that for the conference. I think I was editing Tony, a whole bunch of different speaker. And then he goes, "Hey man, what are you up to? I haven't really, you know, we don't hang out anymore." And I'm like, I'm just editing his videos. I'm like, do you want to watch it? He goes, sure. He goes, you know, I said, I have to finish this video. I'm like, here, watch one. I was watching it. And then he kind of like came to me and he was like, "Can you explain what this is, Emerson?" So I started explaining non-duality. There's nothing here. And then in an instance of like, not even an instance, in about 30, we're talking for 30 minutes. And then he kind of like looked at me and said, "There's nothing here." And I was just like, just never, you know what I'm saying? He's never been to a residential. He's never been to, that's just first time hearing about non-duality. And then he calls me once in a while and we just laugh so much about this. It's just kind of like, it's just so hilarious. And he's kind of like, but it's, so that's what it did. You know, well, it didn't happen, but you know what I'm talking about, right? It was just something. And then now we have this awesome bond. Awesome bond. We'll just go like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And we'll just walk for hours and laugh at, or I don't know. I can't explain it. It's so hard to talk about this to somebody else. And I love talking to you about this.
It's just, I mean, I'm a, I'm a fucking mouthpiece. You know,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I wish, you know, people say like, "Oh, you know, I don't talk to anybody about this." You know, I'm like, I wish I could do that, you know, but I constantly find myself, you know, talking about it. Maybe not as much now. And especially when the first time I came back from Tony's, and I was playing a lot of poker then. So I was hanging out with my poker friends, and it was just like, I was telling everybody constantly all the time, like, "The fuck are you talking about?" Like, and I was telling all my friends, and everybody thought like, because I would, you know, this character is, you know, I would pick up something and I would be really into it, and then I would just drop that, and it would be the next thing, and they just thought it was the next crazy thing that Joey's into. But yeah, this stuck. Yeah. So now the situation is, I guess it's just sort of, you know, there's a lot of seeking and non-seeking and seeking and non-seeking going on. It's sort of all right and sort of not. I'm loving the pandemic in the sense that there's so many Zoom meetings going on. I could go, Andreas is doing 4 days a week and then sometimes weekends, and there's a retreat or residential, and then Tony's doing it. And yeah, it's wonderful. I love it, And I also chat with a guy. Oh, that's interesting. I had, so I got an email from a guy in the middle of the summer. And he says, hey, my name is Richard, and I am helping Andreas convert his YouTubes into MP3 or sounds, and I'm not sure what he does. And I was converting, his older YouTubes into MP3, and I heard you on it, and I thought, it would be a crack to chat with you. Anyway, it's been like a year or something since the me has fallen away here, and if you want to chat on Zoom, that would be cool. And so, he gave me his number. He lives in Idaho. He's he's 70, so he's retired. He's not really doing much. So we started chatting once a week, and now we chat twice a week. And this, it's really cool. I really like it because there's no agenda to it whatsoever. We could be talking about this, and then whatever comes up. There's no agenda to talk about only, this or what is, and yeah, it's really lovely. I love it. And he's a really sweet, really sweet guy. He's a really, really nice guy. But when it comes to this, because for 40 years, he was seeking into the awareness and the consciousness teachings and all those things. And, he's very adamant about, there's absolutely no awareness, no consciousness whatsoever. There is no one, there isn't anyone, So it's nice. I love it, Now, every day pretty much I can go on something. So after traveling so many times for such a long time, from that, it's kind of a relief that, it's at my doorstep. Right now, I don't know if there's any difference between Zoom meetings or not. I don't sense that there is for me at the moment,
I was talking to Tony about that and Claire just earlier today, actually. We were talking about that. We're talking about the retreats because there was an intimacy with the retreat. The gym retreat was amazing.
Yeah.
Good. It was so good. We were just talking about that, and Tony's plans to do another retreat later on because he has a residential in April.
Yeah, in Germany.
And I told him, I said, Tony, or Claire, I was talking to Claire earlier and Tony before that might not go on and because of the vaccines and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So that might not happen, and and I don't want him to I love Tony and Claire too. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of like I call them my grandpa. My grandma, it's just ever since kind of like interviewing him, there's a nice connection, with Tony and Claire there, kind of like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so they might not do that, you know what I'm saying, for Germany. Have you already booked your tickets to go there?
No, I was speaking to Claire about it, and she says, not necessarily to do it yet, but I guess I should contact Marianne to book my space just in case, because I was booked for residential in the spring. I got moved to the fall, then it got moved to February, I think, or something, and then that got canceled. So now they moved that to October. This is in England, but the German one I haven't reached out to Marianne yet, I guess, because you don't have to, you book it through somebody else.
Yeah.
So I haven't booked it yet, but if it's on, I'm definitely going. Awesome.
So right now, you know what I'm saying, with your seeking, where are you at?
That's what I said. Like I said, there's pretty much a non-duality thing going on every day almost. Andreas is Monday through Thursday. Tim does it twice a week. I chat with Richard twice a week, you know, and then whatever else is going on. Kenneth does his on Sunday, and then he sometimes does like a day thing, a half a day thing, or something like that. I do like, you know, what I liked about the being at the meetings with Tony is that, you know, there was really no rules, you know. There was no agenda and there was no rules. You know, you could do whatever you wanted, you know, and so it was great. I was allowed to be bad, you know. It was like I was allowed to be bad. You know, it's not that I was bad or anything like that, but I was allowed to be bad. It was great. You could, and with Tony just sitting, you know, he would be sitting in the front, and you know, they'd sometimes just go sit right next to him on the floor and lay down and sleep next to him or whatever. There was just like, there was no agenda. There's nothing to get. It was really great. Wonderful. Yeah. So I guess I missed that, and I missed the group, you know, especially my friends being there, you know. Yeah, but there's only a certain amount of people that, you know, that I really truly resonate with, you know, like if somebody gives you something, or then I don't know, I can't. And it's not even that. It's really an energetic thing. It's just like you tune somebody in, and it's like 30 seconds in, you're like, oh, I'm not interested. I don't want to listen to this. So that's how it goes, you know. Like anybody, when the moment they say, like, you know, you have to get back into awareness or breathe and all, and I can't get ready, you know. I'm quite a fiery character, you know. So sometimes I gotta tell you, like, sometimes I'm on Zoom meetings, you know, and I don't know if you see it, but my girlfriend is like, is like, make sure your microphone is off, you know, because I'm like yelling at the you know, the screen.
That's why I'm interviewing you. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I was like on a break from the Tony Parsons retreat, and then I heard you. I'm like, oh, Joey's there, and I was talking to someone else, and but yeah, I like your passion about this. You know, it's so great to see, and you know, your story.
I gotta tell you, it's not something I do. You know, it's not something. It's just
no one's doing it,
especially around it. You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Totally.
But I get it. And it's like that, you know, with everything. I either do it, you know, like 200% or nothing at all. You know, it's just the whole personality is like that.
No, I appreciate that. And I really like that the questions that William was asking, you were asking. It was great. It was just great to see all of that, you know, because I've never been really into a meeting. I've seen all the YouTube videos before when I was having to seeking. I was actually planning. There was one point I'm like, maybe I should just move to UK. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You know?
I never thought about that because I have a business here, so I actually like what I do. So
what do you do there, Joey?
I have farmers market stands in New York, New Jersey, in the tri-state area. So I have mostly sell bread, but I also have other prepared foods and stuff like that. So it's you know, it's a great business. I love it. It's quite lively. So and it, you know, I have people working for me or with me. So I can you know, I can get away if I need to. So it was great. I mean, I remember last year I had gotten into a harvest festival, not last year, 2 years ago, and I was going to go to see Tony in Germany, and they just called me like last minute that we want you in here. And I was like, okay, So I remember like doing the, having my guys and doing the festival like all day on Sunday, getting up like, stupid o'clock in the morning. And just from there, like finishing it, not seeing it all the way through. My guys packed up, but I wanted to be there for the first time around. And then just driving directly to the airport from there, getting into a plane, flying to Munich, renting a car, and it's like 28 hours, 26 hours later, something like that, yeah, I just arrive at Tony's, it's always great,
So Joe, you have not missed a single Tony meeting since 2011?
Oh no, I hadn't gone to every weekend. No, that would just be too crazy, And he also obviously has the Saturday meetings in Hempstead. That I just doesn't. I've been to Hempstead once, but I've been to a bunch of weekends. But his residentials, I hadn't missed. It was always Claire. At one point, I think when I started going, there wasn't a limit, and then into like the third year or something like that, they started putting a cap on like how many you can attend, because the people there was just a few of us that would be just going into every one of them. I just let Claire know, Claire and Sue. I was like, listen, I don't care when somebody cancels last minute, even if it's the day before, you can call me, because I was just like, come hell or high water, I don't care what happens. I'll just leave. Let the floods come after me. I'll just go and deal with the mess later. So and then they would, there would always something pop up, even at the times when you weren't allowed to attend more than one in Wales or something like that. I can't even remember the exact details at that time, but it just said, listen, last minute, whatever, you guys can call me. So there was somebody always canceled.
Oh, this is so beautiful, man. It's so awesome to just hear all of this stuff. It's I've always wondered about residentials, and I wish I kind of like went, but I was doing my own thing before, and meeting Tony and meeting Jim and Andreas and Kenneth and Tim, it's just been such an awesome experience. I'm gonna pause this right now, but we'll keep on chatting. I think that was pretty good.